we've got to learn how these things even got embedded in us, these patterns of living, the habits that we have adopted in what we feed on, and what we take into our systems and what we believe. This is all a retooling, folks. This is what we've been learning the last 3 years. We're having our whole system upgraded to think differently, to live differently, because he wants us to be able to contain what he wants to pour out. And so he's cleaning up our whole system, and he's making us whole so that then we can be the vessels, the conduits of the fullness of a glory. Hey everybody, this is Wanda Alger, and today is Thursday, February 29. I'm going to do a follow-up on my last video, which was titled Spiritual Warfare, Healing, and Deliverance. It's kind of a general title because I was talking about some warfare, spiritual warfare strategies. But then I went into some of my own journey this last year in all that I have learned in battling our physical health and well-being, especially since the COVID outbreak, in the increase of people being sick. I mean, not only dying, but being sick and having long-term negative consequences from the virus, from shedding, even from the jab, plus many, many other things. And so I shared just a lot of things that I had learned last year in that specific realm of our physical well-being, because I knew that the Lord had told me, discern the body. I need to examine myself, take account for my physical health. And I really, like I shared last time, I really do believe this is something we've got to pay attention to, is our physical health and well-being. We can, talk all day about the spiritual realities and warfare, and spiritual disciplines, and even pray for healing because God is the healer. But there's a very natural aspect of our warfare because we are made up of spirit, soul, mind, and body. And God wants us to be whole. And that means every area of our life, we have to be willing to examine. And that includes our soul area, as well as our physical area, our bodies and what we are being fed. And so, as I indicated, and I highly encourage you, if you've not seen my last video, please go and watch that because I give some background. I'm not going to repeat here, but that'll give you kind of a backdrop and provide a lot of links for some information. I am a newbie at a lot of this. I've never had health issues before. And so this last year, when all of a sudden we were confronted with some things, primarily the ringing in my ear, when you can't function in life, you're kind of forced to look at things. And God, in his mercy and grace, he made sure that I paid attention to this because he wants us to be whole. And so it's been a joy to share this, even though it's very different than what I normally talk about on this channel. I got such feedback from you, such great feedback. And so many of you either confirmed what I was saying, or you asked a lot of questions and you were excited about it because you've been dealing with these same things. And so I'm basically, what I want to do is I'm going to answer a lot of the questions that came up. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into some of the things that I opened up and just kind of present a lot of different things. It's going to be a hodgepodge of different topics, talking about heavy metals, the nicotine protocol, diet, fasting, sinuses. I mean, these are just real physical health issues that many of you are dealing with. If you're not dealing with them personally, you probably know of people who are. And this was my other admonition in my last video, is that I believe in divine healing. I believe that God can heal us on the spot. But I believe that we are also at a time, given the global stage and what the Holy Spirit has been doing to wake us up to the spiritual realities and the natural realities of our enemies, our spiritual adversary, which is both in the spirit, but manifesting in very real time. We're waking up to these things. God's wanting us, he's inviting us to do our part in our physical healing. Because, and I've seen this before, when we've prayed for people, you can ask for supernatural healing on the spot. But let me tell you, if you've got some bad practices in your bodies, in your physical health and well-being, the healing won't stick. Okay, so that's not good. We need to be informed of how we're living, because it's really about a healthy lifestyle. not just healing on the spot. God can do that. What he really wants is a lifestyle of health and well-being. This is why we are being armed with the facts. He's calling us up. That's what he's been doing, these last 2-3 years, is exposing this is what the enemy is doing. We're not supposed to be unaware of the enemy's schemes. We've been talking a lot about that in the spiritual realm, in the government realm, political sphere. Okay, it's time we also look at that in the very real aspect of our physical health and well-being, because the enemy, our spiritual adversary, has been trying to kill us through the toxins and poisons, through our food sources, through our medicines, the environment. We just haven't been paying attention. And so this is why I'm excited to talk about this, because it is real time. It affects everybody. And even though I'm certainly not an expert, and I'll just share my part, what I really look forward to and what I loved about the last video is how so many of you engaged in the conversation through your comments, because you added to it. And so I highly encourage you, as you watch this, both leave your comments and your feedback, as well as read the conversation afterwards, because that's how we learn. I'd mentioned last time that some of the supplements that I've gotten, I get online through Amazon, and I learned more from the comments and the reviews online than I ever did from the experts, on YouTube. Because when you talk to someone that's actually done it, that's used that or tried it, that's really where you're going to find, the success rate. So I highly encourage that as I go through these things, you'll give your feedback as to, yes, that worked for me too, or, well, have you tried this one? And to provide links, that kind of thing. That's where we're going to learn. So with that, I'm just going to kind of hit these by the various topics and give a little bit more information, a little bit more insight. I hope it's useful to you, or maybe to someone that you know. Again, you have to do your research. There's a lot out there. But I'll do my best in telling you how I came up with the information that I did, so that you can go test it yourself. But the one thing I do want to touch on, though, before I get into the specifics, I wanted to clarify a comment that I made, because the question came up a couple of times. And that was my comment about Elijah Streams and that platform, the Elijah List. When I had talked about the spiritual warfare that I encountered last year and the demonic attack that had come against me, I had mentioned that the Lord showed that part of that attack had come because I was on that platform. I in no means wanted to suggest that I was renouncing that platform or Elijah Streams, that anything was wrong with Steve Schultz or that ministry. No. What I was referring to, and what the Lord had shown me, was that at the time when I was really prominent on that platform, it was at a time when the world was looking to the prophets. And globally, people were looking to the Elijah Stream prophets, for what was happening. That could really go to your head, because it brought a lot of notoriety. It brought a lot of scrutiny. But that's what the Lord was addressing with me, was just searching my heart in any way that I had taken it, that reputation to myself, or I had wanted that notoriety by virtue of being on that platform, because that would speak of pride and, fleshly ambition. And those kinds of attitudes can open the door to the enemy. And so that's what I repented of. And I just fully surrendered it to the Lord. And I knew that it was him, because he sovereignly, it was a work. He had told me ahead of time that he was going to remove me from that platform. There's no conversation that I had with Elijah Streams or Steve. It was a sovereign work where it stopped. And I knew the Lord was doing that to pull me away, into this time, a very different season of warfare. So I just wanted to clarify that. I did not want to leave any impression that there was anything wrong, with that ministry. Obviously, they've gone under a lot of scrutiny, and I know that some of you, have renounced them, and you don't like everyone that's on there, and I understand that. Okay, it's unfortunate reality of the season that we are in. I'm just saying that for me, I have no ill will, okay, towards them. So enough on that. So let's just talk about some of the things I addressed last time about heavy metals, the heavy metal protocol, because the the word of the Lord to me had been inflammation and heavy metals. He said, you need to take a look at that as part of the cause for this ongoing ringing in your ear. And he had shown enough to me that I knew I needed to follow up. And so I had mentioned in the last video, I found out very quickly that inflammation is huge. It is a major contributor to the majority of diseases and sicknesses that are diagnosed today and supposedly treated. And if you look at what causes inflammation, unfortunately, everything that we've been putting into our systems is probably causing inflammation. You know, the additives, the preservatives, and yes, heavy metals cause inflammation. So that's why I did such a deep dive in this, because I realized that inflammation had settled in my sinuses, and that's why I addressed it. So let me just give a little more detail about this heavy metal detox, because I really encouraged some of you who might feel like you're at a dead end to try this. Someone had asked when I sent in my hair sample, because I did the test first, because I wanted to see, okay, where am I at? Do I even have them, and how much? Someone was concerned that I was giving away my DNA. Two responses to that. One is EQUILIFE company, founded by Dr. Stephen Cabral, that I had recommended in my last video. I had watched him enough. I trust his practice and who he is as a person and a doctor. I had no concern that he was going to take my DNA and use it for something. So that was major. The other thing for me personally is, it was probably 15 years ago, I joined Ancestry.com. This was years before any one of us would have thought that, someone would use our DNA against us. So, already 15 years ago, my DNA was out there. So to me, it was really no big deal. So, but if that's a concern to you, simply, you just have to find a trusted source that's not going to be a concern. Pray over it. Someone had suggested, certainly. So the other thing about detoxing, because I saw a lot of comments about the need to detox. This is very real. And this is something I had never been aware of physically, because when you get to a point when your system gets clogged up with whatever, yeah, you do detoxing. Now, fasting is one thing, and I'll address that near the end. But in doing a true detox, from what I understand, it's really detoxing your entire system. It's like cleaning out all the pipes, okay? Especially your intestines and gut, because for those who have done a deep dive in this, many times it's gut issues, digestive issues that's clogging up the system. So they often recommend, before doing a heavy metal detox, you need to make sure that your pipe system is clean, okay? And EQUILIFE company that I had recommended, they do have a cleanser, a detox that does that they even recommend, perhaps you do that first before you spend the money and time in doing the heavy metal detox, so that you really get the most benefit from it. For me, I had already changed my diet majorly for 6 months before I ever did the detox. So I felt pretty satisfied that things were working fine. But that's just something to be aware of. And the reason about that is that the way that a detox works too is because there's natural ways to do it, and they can tell you to, eat a lot of cilantro and chlorella, natural compounds that what they do is they act as binders, because the reason you've got heavy metals is they're stuck there. There's nothing that takes them out. So you have to find something that's going to bind itself to heavy metals. And so that's what cilantro and chlorella does. And it's called chelation, where it takes this out. But you have to be careful about how you do it, because it can kind of shock your system. And you can actually get binders that bind the metal, but then you've got to make sure that something flushes them out. Otherwise, they just get redistributed. So that's what this heavy metal detox system does. It puts all those components together so that you can be assured that you have the binder plus the necessary enzymes and supplements that it's then going to leave your system. Now, the reason I say that is because something else that had been suggested to me was another supplement called ZEOLITE. And Dr. Cabral, he does talk about this. I found a couple of videos where he talks about it. And someone gave this to Bobby and I, and it's basically just like clear liquid. This one is called Advanced TRS. It says it's a dietary supplement. I got it off of Amazon, but it's basically zeolite. And it is actually made up. It's got a little bit of aluminum in it, but because of its properties, you spray a couple of sprays in your mouth every day. And what it does is it will go anywhere that water goes in your system. It literally binds itself to any kind of heavy metals and takes them out of your body. And so even Dr. Cabral said, zeolite is good. It's powerful. However, this is not a true detox system, the way that a whole detox system should work. It's basically a binder. But some people claim it can work. So you can do some research on that. What I decided was I only want to do one protocol at a time, because if I really want to know if something's worked, I don't want to be doing a couple things because I'll never know which one did it. So I decided to finish the heavy metal protocol. And then after that's done, I might try some of this just to see if there's any further success. So I just wanted to recommend that. In terms of, again, of the heavy metals, I saw another comment about aluminum. You'd replace your baking sheets, because that's the dream that the Lord gave me, was the aluminum baking sheets. And I did test my baking sheets because I thought, I'd never even paid attention to what they were made of. Sure enough, my favorite ones, they were all aluminum. So I quickly went online and I ordered some stainless steel. Unfortunately, they're not as heavy gauge, and so I can only use them up to 350. And past that, if I try to use them as a roasting pan, they warp. They pop in the oven. Whoa, bummer. So what I decided to do was just to use my old ones, but put parchment paper on top of them so that there's no direct contact with that aluminum, which is a safe and easy way to do it. You know, you don't have to get rid of all your cookware. Just find ways around it. And in terms of mercury, actually Bobby's test came back and he was even higher than I was in aluminum and mercury. He still has mercury fillings in his teeth. So now we're weighing that because the EQUILIFE coach that we had a coaching session with, she recommended it might be good to get those fillings out because there's a lot of mercury packed in there, and year after, depending on how long they've been in there, is, you know, again, little increments, but over years, you know, and decades, it's going to get into your system. So we're still kind of weighing that out. I mean, I had mine replaced years ago. So, you know, that can be a source of mercury. Actually, fish can also be a source, like salmon, depending upon where it comes from. Fish can have high levels of mercury. And so you want to make sure where you're getting your fish from, that it's the right kind. Because again, in heavy metals, we're talking little tiny increments in all our food sources, spices, all these things. It's the buildup, years of eating this stuff and putting it in our system. It just gets to the point where, okay, it's going to start having negative effects on us. I even found out baking powder has aluminum in it. So I just replaced mine. Again, I got it online. It's, I think it's Bob Mills. You can find baking powder free of aluminum. So I'm starting to use that. You know, what I decided to do is, as I'm able to start replacing little by little, you know, these spices and food sources, I will. You know, I didn't get into panic mode and try to clear out my whole cupboard in one day. You have to, you know, got to be practical here and do a little bit at a time, because even your beauty products, they're laced with stuff too that's going into your skin. So again, you know, we've just started replacing our shampoos and even our bar soaps, you know, all those things that we use probably more often than not. It's going to be slow and gradual, but this is where you get armed with the right information. Because, I mean, who would have thought, you know, even 5 years ago that we'd be having these conversations? You know, the majority of the population even having to look at this thing. We just assumed everything must be safe. Everything must be good for us. Oh, yeah. So thank God that he's waking us up and we're helping each other in this. Okay. Now, the nicotine protocol that I had referenced last time, I was very encouraged to hear that some of you had already been on that. You tried it, and numerous of you said it worked. Yes, we did the nicotine patches, and we were so thankful to find it. So again, when I shared my experience, this was over a year ago when it was still really new. And someone had asked about, the dosage and, if you've never smoked before or had nicotine, is it dangerous or are you going to have any side effects? And when I started the nicotine protocol, and this, for those of you who are first time watching, again, you need to watch the first video, but it's Dr. Artis that gives the whole background. I mean, he's got a whole video. I reference it in the last video. The links are there, so you can go watch it. And he'll give all the evidence and the clear science that backs it up of what nicotine does. And this is specifically targeting, and you need to hear this, specifically targeting those lingering effects from those who have had COVID or have experienced it from shedding or the jab. That's what he's really addressing. And I say that because some of you who have talked about, well, I've got it ringing in my ears too, or other health issues. If it's not the result of COVID or what was put into our system because of that, the nicotine may not apply then, because the source is different. And that's what it ended up for me, is even when I went through the protocol, I couldn't tell any difference. But to me, that simply indicated that wasn't the cause of the ring. Now, as it turns out, Bobby may actually do this protocol because he's now finally realizing some of his stuff, it's never been the same since he had COVID. I mean, we never got the jab or anything, but we're beginning to wonder, maybe that's why the Lord, directed me to do it first, because actually it's Bobby that needs to do it. When I started it, I did the gum, and I only did 1 milligram at a time, because I think he said to chew the gum for like 10 minutes and then spit it out. And so I've never smoked in my life. And so I started with 1 milligram. And then I worked up to 3. And then eventually I went to the 7 milligram patch, because that's what he recommends, 7 milligram patch for 7 days. And that's it. So I worked my way up to that. I never had a problem. I never had any negative side effects. And so I still think for some of you, I'd encourage you, watch the video. Okay, get armed with the facts so you know what it is. So you can go in with faith, because that again was my testimony that the Lord really started visiting me when I started taking this, because he was rewarding my faith, because that's where our faith was set. He's the healer. I was simply following his directive. And this is what I've done this whole time. All of these things, it's been because he'll say, okay, now do this, now do this. And in each one, I've seen a little bit of a change. So it's also been a journey of listening and obeying. And like I said, this is all a part of what he's doing in us as a people. He's training us to listen, to follow, and to be strategic in our warfare. That we can't just keep hitting these general, bullseye. We've got to target specifically how the enemy is coming after us. And it's very different for each individual. This is why I'm telling you, you need to listen to what he's telling you to do. Do your research. Listen to what he's saying. Okay. So I wanted to make a couple comments about, diet and food, what we've been eating. And here's just very practical things that I did when I first realized, okay, my diet, I guess I need to pay attention to it. Both Bobby and I, first of all, we got a blood test to have an honest assessment. Where are we at? And if you're able to do that, I mean, there's a cost to it, but at least you know what your body has, what it's, I mean, I was anemic. I was lacking certain minerals, and actually my B12, interestingly, I had read earlier on that tinnitus could be an indication of not enough B12. So smart me, I get online and get the highest highest dose of B12, and I start taking it. Unfortunately, then when my blood work came back, my doctor even called me. She said, Wanda, whatever you are taking for B12, get off immediately. You are spiked so high, it's not even on the chart. So, God's grace was there. In my ignorance, he covered me. Who knew? But it's why it's good to get tested, because then at least you know where you're at, and okay, how you need to supplement. And I think it's always good to get a second test. That's why I was glad to do the heavy metals test, because it was another form of getting similar information, and then I could compare and learn from that. And something in terms of just supplementation and minerals. Magnesium is a very important mineral that we need. And my blood work And this again is why we test and we compare. The blood work had come back that my doctor said, well, you're fine in magnesium. But yet some of my symptoms, when I would read about what would be causing these symptoms, it kept indicating low magnesium. And so I couldn't understand that. Well, when I got back the heavy metals test, it showed that I was low in magnesium. And so they made recommendations because they had supplements that could, help with that. So I texted my doctor, is there any concern? Could I be overdoing it? And she really didn't know. So when I talked with the coach from EQUILIFE, she said, when your body is in high levels of stress, and actually the test that they provide, the results that they provide, it even goes so far as to show the stress level that you have, what's being caused by stress. And then they had descriptors of being an oxidizer, a mixed oxidizer, a fast oxidizer, or a slow oxidizer. Basically, I was a slow oxidizer, which meant I am always in fight or flight mode. Bottom line, a lot of stress. And so not good, but it was a reality check for me. And so this coach was saying, when your body is in a lot of stress, it goes through magnesium a lot quicker. And so you run out of it. Your body isn't getting enough. So she said, right now with your detox, what you're going through, you need more magnesium. So that was very helpful information for me because I didn't know that. And my medical doctor, she wasn't aware of that, which again is another reality check. We can't expect our doctors to be experts in everything. And so this is where we've learned. I mean, both Bobby and I have learned through the years, when we want to get counsel, we go to people who really specialize, in that one thing. You're not going to find a medical doctor that is an expert in every field. That's why they have specialists, And so I don't hold that against my doctor necessarily. She's a great doctor, but I just realized in this particular area of supplements, she wasn't as learned as she wasn't as aware of things, but she gave me the freedom, to go check it out. And she's telling me, keep me posted because she wants to learn, which is why I like her as a doctor. So in terms of the diet and things that are going into our system, okay, that have been toxic to us, seed oils, the majority of processed foods, anything that comes in a bag probably has cottonseed oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, who knows what kind. They're all so unhealthy. They cause inflammation. Bottom line is, I think the three that I found that are the safest are pure organic olive oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil. And thankfully, more and more is becoming available in the organic markets where you can find things, with these oils. The hardest thing for me was to find something salty, a snack. It's like crackers. I mean, we just even like saltines. I didn't know. Oh, I was so disappointed to find in saltines bioengineered products. Some of it is, actually fake food in there. So I banned it from my husband because he loves snacking on those things. And it's been very hard for us to find crispy, salty snacks that are free of bad oils. There's like one or two kinds of chips that are, made with avocado oil. Believe me, I have looked. If you've got any suggestions, leave them below. But this is something in reading the labels. This is why you have to be aware of what you're getting. And again, I will mention the Bobby Approved app. I was encouraged. A lot of you were familiar with that. And you said, oh, I take that everywhere, I go. I mean, I don't know if you can see it. The light's pretty bad. But you can, if you push this thing there, you can do barcodes when you go to the store. Wow, it shows a barcode there. And then it'll bring up exactly what's in that food, if it's good or not. If it's Bobby Approved, it'll give you recommendations. Basically on the app, you can also just put in the search bar any kind of food, like, okay, give me some good options for gluten-free bread. And it'll list everything that you might find at various stores, what's approved and not approved and why. So it'll do a lot of the homework for you, which is why I love that. I did find, in terms of, for those of you who have learned that gluten, unfortunately, in this nation, so many of our baked products, that it's bad gluten because it's been so highly processed. In other countries, it's a totally different story. People who have to have a gluten-free diet here, you can go to other nations and their food is so different. It's so much healthier than ours. I mean, our nation has been targeted to be poisoned. Um, anyway, I did find one brand, Simple Mills, that I have found some really good options because I'm a bread eater, and they do have a flat bread that's really good, and a pizza that I can make homemade, and just different things. In doing all our research, I was happy to find them. Again, unfortunately, it costs money right now to buy organic. That the companies, they're still taking advantage of us, unfortunately. As in the last couple of years, it's become more evident that people are wanting real food and organic things. Well, of course, the big companies, they'll jump on, oh, okay, we'll provide it for you. You just have to pay 4 times as much. So we're in this awkward place where we're trying to transition back to, at good agricultural practices and true farming and homegrown healthy foods. It's going to take a while. And but at least we're getting more options. So, you just kind of have to weigh that out in all of this. I have found that, in terms of changing the diet and trying to remove all those processed oils, the processed, refined sugar, I still use my favorite recipes. I just replace all those items now with better products, like anything like butter. I'll use grass-fed butter or coconut oil, especially if I'm doing a baked good, like a cookie or a cornbread. Coconut oil actually really tastes good too. And so I'll substitute that. There's some fairly decent gluten-free flours out there. Depending upon what you're looking for, again, just look at the ingredients, but there are options out there. So I just replaced the gluten-free flour, and there's all kinds of flours, but they are all very different in consistency. So you really have to kind of test your recipes, because almond flour is a lot more coarse than, say, cassava flour. They're all very different. So it's kind of a trial and error kind of journey, but power to you. So, but it is this replacing of ingredients. You find good ingredients, and then you can start, reworking your recipes. Water. What do we do about our water source? Well, here's where over a year ago, we actually got a water filtration system at our house. It's an RO, reverse osmosis, which basically removes all minerals. I mean, it removes everything. Some people don't like that for various reasons. We really like it. We found it to work great. We used to be Deer Park fans, in the plastic bottles. Do not drink water out of plastic bottles, because that plastic, all that stuff, it will seep into the water, especially if you let it sit in a hot car. That's the worst. And so we use our RO water, even though we sit on a property, we have our own well, but the water is so hard, and it's got all kinds of stuff in it that we don't want. So we have our own filtration system. It is more expensive. It is an investment, but for us, it's a worthwhile investment. And if you're going to take water with you wherever you go, make sure that you use a stainless steel canister, not aluminum. We had to change some of our, our canisters that we would put our water in. Costco actually carried some here a while back that were really cheap and great. And I use it all the time, actually, here, okay? Because it is fully stainless steel. Make sure that you get that. Also, if you add a little bit of lemon, I didn't know this, you add a little bit of lemon juice and sea salt to your water, that actually acts like a natural Gatorade. It gives you electrolytes, which we all need electrolytes. I thought that was kind of cool because I do have a pitcher in my fridge, and I always keep a water in there with lemon. I've got a filter in there that I put fresh lemons in, and that's my go-to every day. It's that lemon water because that has a health properties as well. Organic veggies and fruits. I have learned to pay attention to the codes that are on vegetables and fruits. And I'm going to put this a picture up here, and you can take a screenshot of it yourself, because I end up taking this now to the grocery store wherever I go, because you cannot test what is organic just because they have organic on the label. They have a numbering system, and if you can learn what those numbers are, I'm trying to find mine here. I should have had this up. Here we go. You need to find the number, it's not the barcode, it's the numbers that are right beside the barcode. Basically, to be truly organic, it should be a four number code, and it starts with 9. That's when you know it's organically grown. If it's four numbers and it starts with four, it's conventionally grown, which isn't as good. I mean, it's better than if it starts with eight, that means it's genetically modified. Not good. Okay. So ideally, fruits and vegetables, you're looking for four numbers that starts with a nine. If you can't find that, you could try with a four. There's no guarantee about what's been sprayed on it, but at least it's better than the genetically modified. And then the other barcodes is, where did it come from? Because a lot of this stuff, it's not even from the United States, which is ridiculous that here we are, we live in a farming community. We've got orchards and farms all around us. And yet in our grocery store, we've got things from China, from Indonesia, from around the world. This is why we need farmers markets and why I highly encourage you. We need to support our local farmers. We live in the middle of apple orchards. And so just a mile down the road is a farm that sells, all their produce to the big companies, but they have their own stand with all their own fruits and vegetables that they grow. And we go and support them. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive than the grocery store, but I am more than happy to support them because we need farmers who know how to till the land properly, and they're doing it right. They're doing it organic. They're not putting all these pesticides on it. And so, not everyone is able maybe to do that, but I enjoy that. And so I look for local farmers that I don't mind paying more just to let them know, thank you for standing strong and for farming and for giving us this good food. I think the more that we do that, we could get back to the days that it used to be, that really the farmers markets is where we get the bulk of our food sources in our local communities. Because even in terms of allergies and food sensitivities, it's when you get things within your own locality that you're more immune to those things. And so this is why I wanted to, especially get apples, because apples are so good for you. And in terms of allergies, you get things, and even honey that is sourced, within, I think, a 20-mile radius, it could be 50-mile radius of where you live. That's when your system is accustomed to it, and it's going to be better for you. So support your local farmers. Okay. Sugars are terrible for you. We know that, especially refined sugar. Monk fruit is a good natural option. There's a lot of, stevia and other things out there. There's mixed reports on a lot of them. For me, where I use sugar the most has always been in my morning coffee. I admit it, I am a coffee addict. I got to have my 2 cups in the morning. But I've gotten a little better because I do like my cream and sugar. And I used to use, it's terrible, but I used to use International Creamer. I love the taste of it. It tasted like ice cream in your coffee. I mean, my 2 favorite foods together. What could be better? Until I learned what all was in that International Creamer. So now I'm trying to wean myself off of it, right? So I switched now to organic whipped cream. Whipped cream. I don't like the half and half. I use organic whipped cream, which is still high in calories. And then I use maple syrup, organic, locally grown maple syrup, which is healthier for you. Unfortunately, it's still high, in sugar content, even though it's natural. So I'm getting there. This is kind of that incremental change. I confess to the Lord that that's my last holdout, in terms of my changes, because I love my coffee in the morning. But it's another change that we have to take into account. Because I've heard other people say those who just cut out sugar altogether are just so much healthier. Maybe I'll get there one day. I'm working on it. Meat, organic, locally bred, if possible. I never buy meat in the grocery store anymore, not even from Costco. There's too many things that can go wrong. And to get it from an organic store, it can be expensive. We actually have utilized Butcher Box, which is it comes through the mail. And I think it's actually from New Zealand. I think that's where they're based. I'm not even sure, but it's not even the United States. But, we did a research on the company, and it felt like it was good meat. It's expensive. So we just changed this year because our daughter and her son, they have a local friend who, just started a farm, and they started buying cows. So my daughter and her husband 2 years ago, they bought a cow. And basically their friend has been taking care of it, feeding it these last 2 years. Well, this week we're butchering it together and we're sharing that meat. And we just so happen to have a nephew in a neighboring town that does butchering. So this is truly local grass-fed beef that we know the source, and really tailor made it to us. So, we're blessed that way. Find out what you've got in your community. Again, it's the local people that are going to make the difference. Determine what you can afford, but we definitely have to be looking at our meat sources because that definitely has been tampered with as well. Okay, I'm getting down to the bottom of my list here. I hope this is helpful, and I hope you're writing down your comments and giving your feedback as well. In terms of fasting is a form of detox. I actually did a level of intermittent fasting, which I hope to go back to, which is basically I reserve eating for like just 8 hours during the day, and then I fast for 16. So basically stop eating at 6 o'clock in the evening and don't eat anything until 12 o'clock noon the next day. I did that for a couple of weeks, and it was really good for me because there's always kind of a reset. You have to do enough of it long enough for your body. It actually goes into some reset modes. And obviously you need to talk to your doctor. Everyone has their own physical situation you have to be aware of. But for me, it really helped my system, and it broke some bad snacking habits that I had. And it helped me just to cut down even on the amount of food that I was consuming that wasn't even necessary. I'm not a big breakfast eater anyway, so it fit within, my routine of things really well. But you might want to consider fasting as a form of detox, as a form of resetting some things. Do some research. There's a lot out there about fasting. Maybe if you've had some good experiences, you can share them below. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of sinuses and this whole clogging that, again, a lot of you wrote back and said, I've had the same thing, because ringing in the ears can be caused by inflammation and by sinus issues. And one of the things that I did, and this is just another idea to throw out if you have allergies or your system is clogged or ringing in the ears, is to consider your lymphatic nodes and getting a lymphatic massage. My son is a massage therapist, and he recommended someone that he knows that I go and did this. This was early on last year when I was having trouble with this. And even my eustachian tubes weren't opening. It was so clogged up, I couldn't even hear. And I went, and oh my goodness, it had a tremendous impact because she cleared up the whole system, because they're all around your face and down here. And it was very gentle, but it opened everything up, and it had such an impact. Basically, my body went through such a sudden detox. I basically had a major cold for the next 2 days. I mean, all kinds of stuff was manifesting and coming out, but it was because it had actually worked. I had been so clogged up. And then since that time, I actually found some YouTube videos where you can do it to yourself. Once you understand the whole lymphatic system and what it does, I found some videos that, you can just kind of help to massage those areas yourself, and make sure that the drainage is happening, where it needs to happen. Because for me, it did make a difference in that ear ringing, because it's like a tea kettle, it gets to the point where, the pressure has to be released. And so that's a part of the whole lymphatic system, which actually goes through your whole body, why we need to exercise too. If you are clogged up and needing to get your system moving, go outside and walk. That's the easiest thing to do. Bobby and I, we did this regularly. It's been a little bit harder with the cold weather, but just go out for a walk, 20, 25 minutes, get your body moving. You've got to have some movement in there because that keeps things flowing. The more sedentary you are, the worse it is. And so you have to find a way, to be able to do that. So the other thing, I keep seeing my notes here, castor oil packs. I have learned the miracle of castor oil this last year. Go on YouTube and just put in castor oil for whatever. Dr. Barbara O'Neill, which some of you referenced, she's another great resource into all this homeopathic, natural kinds of cures that God has given us. She's a believer, but highly respected and a lot of scientific backing. She has quite a few videos out about castor oil, of just what it does. It reduces inflammation, and it's one of those oils that really absorbs into your skin. And for sinuses, here's the quickest fix: is you get that castor oil and you put it all over where your sinuses are. You slather it on, and then you go stand in a hot shower for 10 minutes. Just let that hot water come. It will open you up, and it will start draining things. I did that when it was really bad last year. And it really felt good, and it opened things up. And since then, I do quite a lot with castor oil. I actually got this little thing. It's from Amazon as well. This came in a little bottle because I use it as a moisturizer on my face. And just to give a little clue for you ladies, it's called Nature's Botox. Okay, check that out. It does amazing things. Since then, I did actually get a larger bottle. I got this online as well. It is hexane and chemical free, 100% pure, cold pressed. That's what it has to be. This is Rejuve Naturals. Again, I don't know this company. I found it through a YouTube video. All these things God has put in nature for us. He has put within the earth all these things that are good for us. And this is what we're going back to, is learning what he has given us and how he's created us to function, and just kind of retooling, for what's ahead. So, I've thrown a lot out here. And what I'm going to do in the next video, and I'm not sure exactly when, but we do need to also address soul wounds. I briefly mentioned it in my last video. There are areas of trauma and pain and fear that have gripped many people, especially in the last couple of years. It's gripped me. And this will wreak havoc on our bodies. Stress can be a major contributor to health issues, to physical health. That's how it manifests. Stress, if it has nowhere else to go, it will manifest physically. This is kind of the last frontier that I feel like the Lord is leading me on. So pray for me in this, because I'm still working through some of this myself. I'm an overachiever, and I'm a person of faith. So if anyone would ask me, how you doing? You got any stress in your life? Nah, I don't got any stress in my life. Well, unfortunately, all of my testing that I've done has come back to tell me, no, you are full of stress. So I've got a challenge before me. God wants us to be free and whole, not living under stress. And we've got to learn the tools. And again, it's not just a matter of declaring, I'm going to be stress-free. We've got to learn how these things even got embedded in us, these patterns of living, the habits that we have adopted in what we feed on, and what we take into our systems and what we believe. This is all a retooling, folks. This is what we've been learning the last 3 years. We are having our whole system upgraded to think differently, to live differently, because he wants us to be able to contain what he wants to pour out. And so he's cleaning up our whole system, and he's making us whole so that then we can be the vessels, the conduits of the fullness of a glory that is so pure and so powerful. So for me, this is why I love talking about this, because it's all integrated together. It's not separate. It does affect all of us in one way, shape, or form. And if it doesn't affect you, it will affect someone that you're close to. So, as I said, I look forward to reading your comments. Read the comments below, interact with one another. These were my suggestions and things that I threw out. I love hearing your responses and your testimonies. Those are very powerful, of what you have experienced. If you've gotten breakthrough because of these, the more that you can put that out there, it's going to encourage everyone to be willing to, okay, I'm going to try something new. This is kind of risky to me, but man, they're look what they're saying. Look how it helped them. I want to try this as well. So if you've made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for hanging in there. Let's see what God has for us in the future. Until then, blessings.